Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Coffin Talk Interviews with the Living, a weekly podcast that explores how our views on death affect the way we live our life. This week, our guest is Nicole Schmidt, and she's the author of the memoir With Love, Nicole, a deeply personal account of caregiving, anticipatory grief, and the life after the loss of her husband. Through her writing and her grief resource center, Heartfelt Haven, she explores the emotional and spiritual complexities of loving someone through terminal illness. Nicole writes with raw honesty about grief, identity, and the way love continues even after loss. And we're going to explore all of that today on our podcast. And obviously, there will be a link to buy the book in the notes for the podcast. So if you're an eager beaver, you can click that right now and maybe hit pause and read some of it and come back. It's up to you. But Nicole, thank you for coming on our show. How are you?
Thank you for having me.
It's nice to see you. And we ask four total questions on every podcast. The first three we always ask are, how old are you? Where did you grow up? And what generation, if any, do you consider yourself a member of?
Okay, well, I am 56. I live in Botno, North Dakota, and then in Mesa, Arizona in the winter. Botno, North Dakota is basically as far north as you can get to be a Canadian without being a Canadian, because we're 20 miles from the Canadian border, central part of the state. I don't know. I feel like I'm an old soul. So even though I was born in the 70s, I feel like I was born in the 40s.
Yeah, I understand that. And just to clarify, you grew up in North Dakota?
Yes.
Wow,
Both my
okay.
husband and I grew up in Botno, North Dakota.
Wow, wow, wow. Okay, so I'm going to spend a little time on that because I think I've interviewed, let's see, zero people from North Dakota in my entire life. It was actually, I've been to all 50 states, and it was the very last one I ever went to. My grandfather died without ever having visited North Dakota. It was his only one. So my brother
Oh,
and I took a lock of his hair, his permission, it wasn't
right.
creepy, and we dropped it in North Dakota. We made like an extra trip around to go up through it.
Oh.
So.
So
Um,
do you know where in North Dakota?
Oh gosh, I mean, I know we saw the Black Hills and all that, like on the way in.
Possibly the Badlands, Medora
Yeah, that sounds
area.
about right. It was
A lot of
definitely the.
people when they do the Black Hills trip, they go up north to Medora and the
Yeah,
Badlands.
I remember thinking it was beautiful. I've always thought good things about it because I like this author named Chuck Klosterman who's from Fargo, and so I just like read everything he wrote and just kind of like got
Yep,
into the whole idea of it.
yep.
So,
Trivia: Louis L'Amour,
mhm.
big Western author. He's from
Yeah.
here, and Lawrence Welk is
Wow,
from
that's
here.
huge. Yeah. And that's interesting too. Yeah, I love like my wife went to Michigan, so she's like showed me the hand and like the where Canada is and
Sure,
how there's different parts of America.
sure.
But
Yes,
and then what's also funny is I'm here in Phoenix, so you come and visit where I live.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, with my fibromyalgia, I have to because I have chronic fibromyalgia, and the winters are just too tough on me.
Hmm.
So, yeah,
Wow. So yeah, I mean that must it must make you tough. I mean that's just me like stereotyping, but I can't see a
yeah,
person not being tough if they grow up in. I mean North Dakota. It's
yeah. I
negative
mean,
degrees.
well, it's interesting because in the summer we can get to 100,
Hmm.
and in the winter we can get below 60 below zero. So, we have quite the extreme weather.
Yeah.
Um, so in any given year.
And so you've
And
known.
actually we're more humid than Arizona as well.
Oh wow, that is interesting. I wouldn't have expected that
Yeah.
actually. Um,
No,
and so your husband, you mentioned that you both grew up there. So was he like your high school sweetheart? Did you know him from?
he wasn't. He we met before. We met when I was in junior high for the first time. And I then kind of, we went, there was a dance and we met there. And I wanted him to call me and he wanted to call me, but we never hooked up, not knowing this, obviously, till
Yeah.
years later. And then he was dating someone that rode my bus because my sister and I, my twin sister, lived 10 miles out of town. And he was dating another twin. And
Wow.
um, she was saying things about her boyfriend. And I thought, gosh, I wouldn't be upset like she is because it sounded so sweet. And I had to meet this guy. And so we have we're about 2,500 people in the winter and we double in size in the summer. But because we have Lake Metigoshian with snowbirds and all that. However, because we're a small community, our junior high and high school are connected and we share a lot of, cafeteria, all that kind of stuff. And the cool thing in junior high is to walk the halls. So we're walking the halls, and the library had all these ceiling to floor glass windows. And I saw him sitting there with his girlfriend from the morning that was complaining. And I pull my friend in, Shadell. I sneak around the bookcases and I look around and I look at Shadell and say, I'm going to marry that man someday.
Wow.
Completely
Wow.
forgot about it. And then my best friend Lisa was dating his best friend Steve. And Lisa kept trying to get me together with this Mitch Schmidt. And I'm like, what's so great about this Mitch Schmidt? Well, lo and behold, in the fall of my first year in college, she finally got us together and we were together ever since.
Wow, that's really great. I mean, that's great. And I want to ask, because we're kind of like a metaphysical podcast, like, do you
Yeah.
believe that you uttered those words to the universe and then it like made a compact? Like, do you have any?
Well, I think so. And I truly believe in, that
Mhm.
serendipitousness and, everything that it's all connected. Um, it, I do. And there were so many as we looked back on our relationship or before our relationship, how many almost hit misses that we had,
Mhm.
but we kind of met and then we were apart and we met and we were apart and not realizing really. And I've been told by people who can do that kind of thing, they said that we have been together in all of our past lives. And I would agree with that because the connection that we had was so deep
Mhm.
that I don't know how we could not have had that deep of a connection, not having that prior.
Yeah.
I know some people think that's weird, but
Well, this show is
um,
this show welcomes people who think that's weird, and this show welcomes people who think it's normal. And the whole point to me, as we like get closer to episode 300, because I would have thought I'd canceled this a long time ago, is the whole point is to just get everyone to see like, hey, we're
yeah,
all making sense, and none
yeah,
of it makes sense. Like that's the one
yeah,
universal
exactly,
connector. So,
exactly. And it's just interesting, just even throughout, especially with his um, diagnosis
mhm.
and his death, how I was having signs before things
Oh wow.
happened. So, January of 2023, I started having these dreams of him needing me. He'd come home from work and he would fall down and would need me. And because, something medically was wrong with him. And I couldn't get to him. And anyway, so every time he would come home and I didn't see him right away, I would immediately go into panic and start looking for him because of these dreams. Also, we had our dream house at that time, but it was huge and we were empty nesters. And I was not going to give up that house, but something started in January with these dreams that, you know what, I think you need to put this on the market and you need to
Wow.
downsize.
Wow.
And we put it on the market. We sold it in 30 minutes, which was crazy. Um, and we went from 27, well, actually over 27. It was probably like 3,200 square feet. and we went down to 970 square feet.
That was my
So we
first,
downsized a
yeah.
lot. Um, so that was part, and then he comes in March, he starts having these stomach pains, goes to the doctor, gets medication, has it for a couple of weeks, pain goes away. We're thinking, okay, it was ulcers. Gets done with medication, pain comes back. Not a good sign. So he goes back. So then they did a scope, and they did colonoscopy, all that kind of stuff. And came back that he had stomach cancer. And so, yeah, in May, he started his treatment, and by February, he died from it. And along the way, like after he had stomach surgery in August, and they said it was success, but she wasn't telling me something, which was about the lymph nodes. And I kept asking, and she kept dodging that question, because you want to get within, I don't know if you know this. If you do, I'm sorry, but you need to get within 10 millimeters tissue that is good. It's non-cancerous. They couldn't get that with him. And so she was dodging that question until we came back for his checkup after the surgery.
Was she doing that, do you
So
think, for morale reasons? Like,
yeah,
yeah, okay, all right.
because they needed Mitch to get
Yeah, no. I just
healthy
wanted to
again.
make sure I understood that it wasn't like
Yeah.
deceptive in like a
No,
greedy bad way.
no,
It was yeah, like
no. It
yeah.
was,
Yeah, I understand.
you can understand why she was doing it. I
Yeah.
mean, there was a reason why.
Yeah, no, I understand.
And
Anyway, continue,
yeah,
please. Yeah.
and so he, then we go back and we find out it went from curable to incurable.
Oh, wow.
So we had so many before and afters, like, before the diagnosis, after the diagnosis, before the surgery, after the surgery, before curable, after now being incurable, which obviously was the hardest, I think, even though all of them were hard, each one kept
Yeah,
being
yeah.
worse than the other. And so we knew that his life was now down to, if we were lucky, 2 years with incurable. The average for the stomach cancer that my husband had in stage 4 was 5 years. And so we knew that it was limited again. My daughter was pregnant with our first grandchild that was going to be born in September the following year, and she was getting married in July in 2024. So this is still 2023. And at that point, we were hoping Mitch would make it to the wedding. Weren't sure if he was going to make it to the birth of the first grandchild. Come New Year's Eve, and I say this with some hesitation, even though it happened. I am not necessarily, I will say, I'm not necessarily a religious person, but I'm a very spiritual person. And I think you understand what I'm saying by
Definitely.
that, just
Yeah.
because of we're very similar in our thought processes. But God did come to me on New Year's Eve night. For the first time, he came to me 3 different times to prepare me for Mitch's death. And he said, time is getting near. And in typical Nicole fashion, I argued with God. I didn't accept it. But he just kept saying in a calm voice, he's needed here. Time is near. And New Year's Eve, Mitch and I had a nice time together. It was, just the 2 of us, but it was a nice New Year's Eve. And at that point, we still thought he would make it to summer. I had that dream, and I don't know if Mitch had a dream or he just had a sense too. The next morning, New Year's Day, we woke up and we looked at each other. Without saying a word, we knew that he only had months to weeks left. Um, he, we knew he wasn't even going to make it to spring.
I am.
And
I'm
from
just so
there,
sorry. It's
yeah,
heartbreaking. I have a
yeah,
wife. She's like 2 rooms away, and I mean,
yeah,
in my
yeah,
worst, darkest moments, I think about these things, like
yeah,
because it's the scariest
yeah.
part of loving someone. I would say.
It is. It
Yeah.
is. It's the grief is all about love and the depth of that love that you have for someone. And the more you love someone, the deeper your grief is going to be.
Wow.
So
Wow.
my grief was quite deep. And then it was complicated because Mitch died February 26th. In May, my son, he was 27 at the time, was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer, which is the sister cancer to my husband's stomach cancer.
Oh my gosh.
Because it's all genetic. Mitch's was genetic as well
Okay.
because his dad died from pancreatic cancer. Mitch had stomach cancer that went into his spine, and then my son now had cancer as well, the sister cancer. He is now in remission now, but it definitely made my grief much more complicated. I had to almost say, okay, today or this next 5 minutes, I'm going to grieve for my son. Okay, now this day or this half hour, whatever, I'm going to grieve for Mitch because it was too hard to untangle which I was grieving.
Yeah.
So it was, yeah, it was hard. And then to have two such huge life milestones, always talked about how, dad's going to walk me down the aisle. I can't wait for our father-daughter dance, especially when she was in dance and they did father-daughter dances at recitals all the time and how that would look. And Lexi and her dad were so close. And to know that that wasn't going to happen, and the dreams that you have having a grandchild together is not there. It was really hard. I didn't have joy. I was able to have joy the day of the marriage, or the day
Hmm.
of the wedding. The day before, I was a ball of tears the whole day. I didn't know how I was going to make it, but I did. I made it through. And then I crashed for the rest of the week. I was just crying all the time. And then when Colson, my grandson, my first grandson, was born in September, before that, people would say, see, now you have so much joy to look forward to. And I would smile and go, yep. And the inside, I was just falling apart because you can't just beam up joy like that.
No, no.
When you're in that deep grief, you can't. And I remember being so thankful that I didn't have to go down to the where Lexi gave birth because we have to go to Minot, which is 90 miles away. We don't have a birthing unit in Botno anymore.
Hmm.
And I was so grateful that I didn't have to go down to Minot because of restrictions still with COVID.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So because all I did was cry. And he was born in September, and then I nannied him from January until Lexi was done with school. She's a teacher in May. But it was probably the end of January, February before I started to feel some lightness with Colson
Hmm.
and some joy with him, which it tears my heart apart. But
Well,
it is what it
yeah.
is,
No,
you
no, and I
know.
think I think this is why you're a good guest to have and someone who's going to help other people is I think I did hospice counseling
Yeah,
and not counseling, I'm sorry. I did hospice care.
right.
And the main thing I was doing was just talking to people and trying to help. And what I realized halfway into it of the 4-year experience where I was doing it was really I was not helping the patients. I was helping people like you. That's
Yeah.
actually like the harder, and you wrote, about anticipatory grief. And like,
Hmm.
one of the reasons I started the show is I think people, the second they think about death and dying, they go, no, 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 no. I don't want to, and I think all of us would be better off having thought through this, hearing your
Yeah.
tale, hearing the grief that you still have. I mean, it's
Yeah.
2026, and some people who have never lost someone are probably thinking, well, come on, it was 3 years ago. Like, it's for, like,
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah.
Hi, everybody. This is Mike Oppenheim, the host of Coffin Talk, the show you're currently listening to, and I'm interrupting to ask you if you would mind doing me a favor and subscribing to my online publication called You Are Here on Substack. It features weekly essays. I also have fiction, and of course, there are links to the podcast and all the bonus episodes. It's completely free, and I would love your support. So please head over to mikeyop.com, that's MIKEYOPP.com, and sign up today. Thank you. Bye.
But they just don't get all the simple things that trigger grief. Like um, not having him lay next to you, your toothbrushes sitting side by side in the drawer. Such simple things that bring on grief, and then the grief, I call them grief hot flashes. Where it just comes out of nowhere. Even in my mature grief, there's times where I'm clicking along fine, but then all of a sudden a song will come on, and it'll just be timing or whatever, and then boom, I'm like, whoa, that caught me off guard. But
Yeah.
it doesn't take, in deep grief, that would have completely done me in for the rest of the day. That doesn't happen anymore. I'm recovered within minutes to half an hour. But then there are still times where I know I need to be more gentle with myself. Like our wedding anniversary is coming up. His birthday and Father's Day are always within a couple of days of each other. And obviously in February, when it's the anniversary of his death, those are still tender moments for me. And people always talk about the holidays, and yes, the holidays are harder, especially in those first couple of years, but it's the everyday things that really get you.
Yeah.
And, I think there's been so many studies done about how your brain is trained and wired for the person you're with. And so when you're in grief, your brain is also trying to rewire itself because that person isn't there. That's why you're still hearing them come home, in their routine. You hear them when they're getting ready for the day, when they come home from work, when, some of those routines, like Mitch always sneezed 3 times. I don't know why,
Yeah, yeah.
but that was his thing. He couldn't just sneeze once or twice. It was always 3 times in a row, and just all of those things that were unique to Mitch or Mitch and my relationship. That's all wired. And your mind, that's why you feel like you're losing your mind, because
Uh-huh.
your mind literally is trying to rewire itself and trying to also realize, oh yeah, they're not here anymore.
This
So
is
it's not just your heart, it's your brain.
this is so helpful for me because my wife lost her mother last year, and I've been watching her go through everything you're
Oh,
describing. And like, the other day she was really upset because I donated something that belonged to our kids to like the Goodwill.
sure.
And she knew I was going to donate it, but she hadn't expressed why she kept delaying it. And then after the fact, she said, this was like something that really reminded me of my mom because I saw my mom using it with her. And, and I just I felt horrible. I wish I could go
Right,
back in time and not, even though
right.
we don't use it, I like now am 100% on her side and then some. And
Yep,
it was a hard moment for me. It was much harder for her. But
right.
it helps to talk to you like today because it just really helps me see that like I've never thought about the wiring and all that, and that's a lot
Yeah.
of like and her mother lives here, so like this is like we moved here, she moved here before we met
Hmm.
to like be near her mom, and I actually moved here to be closer to my parents, so our love story
Right.
is cool that way. But we thought we'd be here until both of our parents, all of our parents passed away.
Right.
and then her mom left so much earlier, and then now I'm watching her like with the rewiring that you're describing. This is helping me
Yes.
help her. I would like to ask you the other question we always ask, because it's definitely timely with what you're talking about, which is, obviously you didn't want him to go, but obviously you also felt that you were warned, like you got a month, let's say,
Yes.
notice, and that was, I'm sure
Yes.
that's undoubtedly helpful in a weird way. It doesn't sound helpful, maybe.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was. Yeah,
But
you still
what?
don't want it
Yeah.
to happen, but it
No, no,
did.
but it's still like, yeah. I just,
It made me feel like I wasn't going crazy.
yeah, yeah.
Like it wasn't just me overreacting.
And so we ask every guest, we ask them, what do you think happens when you die? And so I do want to know what you think happens when you die, but I would also like to know if you thought about this as he was dying or after he died, like where did he go? Is he around? Do you believe in any of that?
Oh, definitely he's around me.
Okay.
I know he's in heaven. He's shown it to me.
Okay.
Um, uh, I was, in fact, one of the first visions that I had of him after he died. He loved to fish, and he was in the middle of a stream with waders on, a fishing pole in one hand and a baby in the other. And he said, "See, this is why I had to leave. This is what I needed to be here for." Because I was, and I'm still adamant that Lexi was initially had twins because she had gotten big so fast, tummy wise, and she's just a little petite little thing. And I said, you have twins, and obviously twins are in our
That's
family.
what I was gonna
So
say. Yeah, I mean, it makes
yeah,
sense. Yeah. Yeah.
so and it skips a generation. My sister and I didn't have twins, so she, it'd be her
Hmm.
generation that would be up. But then it was only Colson that was born, and Mitch was showing me this is the other baby. So he
Wow.
confirmed a couple of things for me. One, that he was at peace, he's in heaven, and this is why he had to be there. It was meant for him to be there to greet this grandchild
That's
in
really,
heaven.
I would, I asked this question a lot, and I've never would have seen that coming, and it like really, it's great, first of all, and again, I want to implore you and our listeners and everyone to just think about, like, there's so much that we have to try to process, and we live in this like
Yeah,
seemingly three-dimensional realm, but like these weird things happen. You mentioned the word serendipity earlier. You said
yeah,
serendipitous, but it's one of my favorite words ever, because it's like
mm-hmm,
we need that word, and yet when you try to explain it to like a child, it just goes right over their head.
yeah,
You have to be a certain age to like get it, because you have to see enough misses, and then you see the hits, and
yeah,
like you would never have known until all the way when you and him were in love, you and Mitch were in love, that you had all these near close
yeah,
calls, and then the word serendipity comes in. So to me, it's in reverse, looking at the twin
right.
scenario. And I find it fascinating because I was actually going to ask you earlier, like intuitively, if you believe in twin flames. Have you ever heard of that concept?
Yes, yes, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I
And
just,
it's interesting.
yeah. Go
Go
ahead,
ahead.
please. No, no, no. I was going to say I want to hear
Well,
more.
and
Yeah, yeah.
the first time I had a vision of uh, a being that had left the world was I was I don't know, 6 or 8. I actually write about it in the book, um, where I saw it would have been a relative of ours. Dad had just gotten done harvesting a field, and was this old house that belonged to this family, and I saw this girl in the window more than once, and Dad obviously didn't see it and kept telling me, you know, you didn't see anything. And he was so adamant that I realized I had to not say anything anymore. But as I got older, these things kept happening. For instance, when I didn't have a lot of serious boyfriends when I was growing up, but I did have one in high school. And I would have a dream of my wedding, and he would turn, and it wasn't this boy. When I met Mitch, I had the dream that night, and when the groom turned around, it was his face. So it's telling me you found the love of your life. You found your soulmate. You're supposed to be with him, which I think is so interesting. And there's something else I was going to say about, children.
Mhm.
You know, you're right that they don't understand the word serendipitous or serendipity. And yet children are so much more open
Yeah,
to
yeah,
that divine coming through,
totally. Yeah,
and we, as adults, unless you really believe it yourself, you try to push it off,
yeah,
and the house that I ended up having to sell, the dream house, the moment we bought that house, even before we bought the house, I didn't even know it was for sale. And for some reason, it's was on a street I never went down. I went down the street this day, it was up for sale. So it was like calling me.
yeah,
And then when we were in it, Joe was the builder, and we would have been the first people in it of 3 generations of that family, if that makes sense.
yeah, it does.
And Joe and his dog were around me all the time. And I could hear him all the time, just checking in what we were doing. And the last time he came was when Mitch and I said, we're going to call it done. It's livable now. There's still things we want to do, but we were tired because we did most of the work ourselves in renovating the house. And it was over 100 years old. And that night, Joe came with his dog, and I woke up and I could smell this scent, strong scent of aftershave. Well, Joe was a barber. So when you go into a barber shop, what do you smell? You
Yeah.
smell that aftershave and shaving cream. And that's exactly what I smelled. And he said, "Thank you for saving my home." And then
Wow.
he left away. And when Ben and Nancy, they were the last owners. Nancy would have been Joe's granddaughter.
Mhm.
They both came to me when they died. So I knew that they died before I saw it in the paper.
Wow. Wow.
So it was interesting how that house even spoke to me,
Yeah.
which is kind of a whole nother thing. But
No, but it's great. I've really enjoyed talking to you about all of this because it's like, I don't know. First of all, I'm tired of what we just talked about, which is I have a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old, and I'm tired of like trying to tell them, don't say that to other people, but say it to me, like with these kind of
yeah,
things. Um, like I don't want people to think you're crazy. I don't think you're crazy, but
right.
like they think we're
Yes.
crazy. And then the more I do
Yes.
these interviews and the more I meet people like you, the more I'm like, I think there's less people who don't believe in this than who do. And I think they
Yeah.
somehow dominated status quo conversations and other things. And it's probably in the name
Mhm.
of like not doing unto others as you'd have done to you. That would be my
Right.
best guess is that like
Yeah.
if you're going to fuel inappropriate, unkind, and compassionless behavior, you're going to
Yeah.
tell people there's, strict rules to heaven and don't listen to this other
Yes.
stuff.
Well, and I'm of the Catholic faith, and
Mhm.
they believe in purgatory. I don't,
Yeah.
because I believe you do purgatory here on earth,
Yeah.
most of us.
I,
Especially when I, saw how my husband had to suffer, especially in the last month, month and a half of his life, where he was in such excruciating pain. That was his purgatory, if you want to believe in purgatory,
yeah.
which again, I don't.
Yeah.
And I know that he went straight to heaven. Um, and also the Catholic faith, which I'm not going to get much into it, but they also don't believe in reincarnation. But
Yeah.
from a young age, I just had this firm belief, even though I was being told this is what the Catholic um, religion
Yeah.
believes. I still had this strong feeling that they've got it wrong in that aspect in far as reincarnation, because I
Yeah.
do believe that we are here in more than one life. I mean,
No, yeah.
I've also been, not only with my husband, but I have been told that my twin sister and I have been sisters more than once in our lives too.
Well, that's part
So,
of why I was asking
which
about
I
twin
think is
flames and things.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
So yeah, I mean, first of all, thank you. Thank you for sharing your story and thank you for
Yeah,
writing your story, especially for writing it and putting it out there. I think it's just, with my wife and like I have plenty of stories about grief. I don't want to get into them. But
right,
my
right.
overall point is I love meeting people who want to talk about it because they want to help people, not because they just want to talk,
Yeah,
but like the goal of helping
right.
others. And so speaking of which, the last question I ask every guest is I just say, you have the floor. Is there anything you'd like to tell my audience? I will include notes for your books and everything in the
Yeah.
episode. So
Well, the book is really just the tip of the iceberg. I started the book actually started out as a blog, letters to my husband. So when my husband was first diagnosed with cancer, as a caregiver, you want to be strong for them, and you don't want to bring up these some of these thoughts that you have and some of the emotions. You just want to be the strength for them and be as positive as you can be. So I would write letters to him, but I wasn't showing them to him to just get all those emotions and things out. And one night I forgot it on the kitchen counter, and I woke up the next morning, not catching, but he was reading them and crying. And he said, "What are these for?" I said, "Well, they're things don't really feel like I can talk to you about because I want to be strong for you. Not that I don't want to tell you these things. It's just I want to be the strength for you. And some of them are kind of dark, and I don't need to be telling you those things." And then I kind of flippantly said, "Well, maybe I could just put them on a blog and, maybe it'll help others." Not even thinking it would go there, especially because my husband is a very private person. He came home from lunch and he said, "I've been thinking about that." Well, he said, "Your writing is unbelievable." And he said, "Others need to know that.
wow.
They need to understand that this is normal
Yeah, yeah.
and that someone else that's going through what we're going through, if they're feeling that, they know that there's someone that's voicing it for them." So he allowed me to then start a blog, Letters to My Husband. And then people started saying, "You need to write a book." Well, I wasn't obviously ready for that at that point. And a year and a half later, after Mitch's death, I became certified as a grief educator because I knew I wanted to help other people that were going through the same thing that I had gone through.
That's
Yeah,
that's incredible, and thank you for
yeah,
doing everything you did. Thank you for coming on the show.
yeah.
And the best way to support our show is to head over to our website, mikeyop.com. That's MIKEYOPP.com, and sign up for my newsletter called "Oversharing at a Dinner Party," where I tell you first-person stories that expose my vulnerability to you, and I hope to help others. So,
I love them.
awesome. Thank you, Nicole. I really appreciate it, and I
Yep.
appreciate you and everyone else. Thank you again. You've been watching or listening to Coffin Talk, and we will see you soon.